so damn slick at this.
Are you implying we're not?
Yes.
I think it's easy to do this stuff when you're all in the same room.
Well, a lot of it is out of our hands because we're relying on so many third-party things. We are relying on Riverside, we're relying on YouTube, we're relying on our 4 different ISPs, I'm going to assume.
And one of those is Virgin Media.
At least one, yeah.
Unspecified number. What happened is Douglas Adams raised the very important point today in his book
Douglas
about
Adams?
what happened
Today?
Not today, when in one of his
It's been
books
dead for
about
25
the
years, you mean?
yes, about where do biraros go? Because where do biraros go? It is a mystery to me.
Planet.
It was Zaphod Beeblebrox's second-hand biro business, wasn't it? He'd been driving limos for some green retractables.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
It was there was a wormhole involved. I definitely remember that much.
Yeah, it's not Squanchella Sata, is it? I think that's the mattresses.
That's the mattress planet.
Yeah.
Is it I Fooble with you or something like that?
Can I confess I can't stand Douglas Adams' books?
Oh,
You can confess.
They're the most overrated thing since Bob Dylan.
double whammy. Although actually, that might be that might be something I could agree with if I parse it carefully.
Several people are typing. I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Former deputy editor of PC Pro.
No, Peter, you haven't told us, but we've only got 5 seconds left. Well, it doesn't really matter to you. You can type over us if you want. 1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast on the 18th of September 2025. I am Tim Danton, editor-in-chief of PC Pro. With me today, I have the very pretty Lee Grant.
Good afternoon. I wasn't expecting that.
The gorgeous Barry Collins.
Good afternoon.
And the delectable Darian Graham-Smith.
Well, I'll take it. I thought you were going to do the old "and also Darian is here," but
How could I do that? Especially as you look so fetching in your headphones, I must say. Anyway.
We're all wearing headphones, Tim. It's not much of a flex.
Well, no,
Sniffing
you've got
glue
a
or
nice
something.
kind of- No, he's got a combo going on, hasn't he, with his cap as well. He's kind of like I don't know, looking very modern. Is all I'll say.
I was just
Darian.
piloting a helicopter here, and then I hopped off and got on the podcast.
Oh, actually, okay. You give me a segue. We did. If we were doing this 2 hours earlier, there would have been the sound of the Chinook helicopters transporting, one presumes, Donald Trump and his coterie from Chequers, which is about 5 miles away, into, I guess, central London somewhere. But it was not 2 hours ago, and only I saw it. But all I can tell you is that this whole shed, shook. It was such a heavy shake that we invented a new word for it. It was, and I've never felt anything like it. It's almost like the helicopter was 20 meters above my head, and they were checking to see if I was, a terrorist or not. Anyway, shall we move on? Because it does kind of tie in actually with the first story, doesn't it, Lee?
I guess, yeah. I'll see if I can hook it in at the end.
Support me here, Lee. Help.
I will. Absolutely. Well, I guess the reason he is here also ties in with the announcements that we've seen this week, which is basically there's some big budget American investments coming to the UK. Let me give you some brief headlines. So Microsoft is reportedly throwing 30 billion by 2028 to build the UK's largest supercomputer, which will apparently have over 23,000 GPUs. So to answer the Discord channel, yes, it will play Doom very well. Nvidia, Google and Salesforce have also committed a further 40 billion in AI investments. Particularly Nvidia plans to deploy 120,000 Blackwell GPUs in the UK, which is the largest drop in Europe. And their head of enterprise sales said, this will truly make the UK an AI maker and not an AI taker. Clearly, their head of enterprise sales is a robot. Google, I prefer Klugel. Google will open a new data center in Waltham Cross to satisfy the demand for AI services, cloud, workspace, search and maps, which apparently will create 8,250 jobs. So the car park will be very busy. So lots of money is changing hands for large tech to expand, plus change. But I'm not going to tell about any of the technological elements here. I'm just going to focus on some of the environmental stuff. Because I think that's much more important. I've had a whip through the official planning documents for the Waltham station. Don't do it. There's a lot of them. But where section 10.4 begins is a lovely line about energy. It says, in line with the energy hierarchy, the proposed development is designed to be lean, clean and green, including provision for solar PV and future heat recovery. Please note that doesn't actually include solar PV and heat recovery. So what's important is that this data centre will be powered by electricity. And back in January, the National Energy System Operator estimated that data centres consume around 2.5% of the UK's electricity, which is expected to quadruple by 2030. Now, if you saw a report in yesterday's Times, NVIDIA's Jason Huang said, I have every confidence that the UK will realise that it takes energy to grow new industries. I'm also hoping that gas turbines can also contribute. So that's not great. Future Energy Networks has also stated that data centre developers are trying to connect directly to gas pipeline distributions, which all of this is a massive conflict with the UK's decarbonisation goals, basically to reduce CO2 emissions. Now, the other side of this story, which Mr. Honeyball alerted us to earlier in the week, that is The Guardian has reported that this Google data centre, some people have been crunching some numbers, it's going to emit more than 500,000 tonnes of CO2 a year, which is about the equivalent of 500 short-haul flights per week. So basically it's a small airport's worth. And this is just one facility. And these headline investments will be building a lot more. The Guardian reported that the British government does not believe data centres will have a significant impact on the UK's carbon budget because of its ambitious targets for electricity grid decarbonisation. But the reality really is, whether Downing Street believes it or not, we are absolutely running out of time here. Because reports this week from the climate agencies in the US and the EU report that the Northern Hemisphere, the summers of 23, 24 and 25, have been the three hottest on records. Palm Springs, California, I'll just take one place as an example. It hit 51 degrees at one point, and it's not meant to. Now, a pre-report by Imperial College this week also stated that human-made global heating caused 2 in every 3 heat deaths in Europe this summer. That's around 16,500 people. And this list of tragedy goes on for 2024, especially in the global south, in places where water isn't on tap and sewers don't exist and all that sort of stuff. You know, India has reported 40,000 heat stroke cases, 700 deaths. You know, the UN has come out this week and said extreme heat is increasingly tearing through economies, widening inequalities, undermining sustainable development goals, and killing people. It's estimated to kill almost 500,000 people a year. Now, AI isn't responsible for all this extra CO2, but it's a growing contributor. Professor John Norton from the Centre of Technology and Democracy at the University of Cambridge has written a recent report, and he sums it up quite nicely. He says, as 50,000 families wait for homes that cannot be built due to grid capacity constraints, tech giants quietly demand vast new power allocations for AI data centre. Sir Keir Starmer's promise that the UK can simultaneously lead in AI and meet its legal net zero commitments by 2050 represents magical thinking at the highest levels of government. So meanwhile, whilst all this is happening, CO2 levels continue to rise. And when this podcast began in 2007, CO2 was at 384 parts per million. And today it's 424. And it's rising faster than it ever has. So these various once-in-a-lifetime weather events that we see on the news, the floods, the hurricanes, the wildfires, you know, they're happening 3 years out of 5. So what I want you to think about when you've heard me rant on about this is that the ticking clock is just getting a bit louder. So I'm just going to leave a final quote from a guy called Mike Berners-Lee. Who's the brother of Tim Berners-Lee. You might have heard of him. Mike is the environmental professor at Lancaster University, specialising in carbon footprint. And in his new book, he just sums it up really quite well. He says, we, humanity, need to perform a reset on ourselves in order to survive. The alternative is the planet imposes a reset on us all against our will, leading to population loss, a crash of civilization, and an unthinkable level of collective suffering and untold destruction to other life forms that share our Earth. It's also important to note that Google has removed its headline net zero pledges from sustainability sites, and their latest sustainability reports, it's reclassified net zero from a copper bottom pledge to a moonshot. So really, as a society, I think what I'm trying to say is we need to think very hard about digital exceptionalism, and do we continue to give tech companies a free pass bought with promises of short-term economic growth with such scant regards for long-term environmental impacts?
Okay, well, Darian, you put your hand up.
I did. I mean, I realised that. I mean, that was very passionately and persuasively put. I realise that you're putting, one side of a debate. I'm not coming for you personally, but I do wonder. It's very clear. You make a very passionate case. Is your position that the data center simply shouldn't be built, or should it be built in a different country, or should it be built 5 years down the line? I mean, what's the alternative proposal?
Blimey, Darren, if I had that answer, I'd be a genius. I think a lot of the problems is we are just throwing these things up with, as the reports are saying, we've got these goals to decarbonize. We need to decarbonize everything. And that's not just us, that's the everyone around the world. And these data centers are just going up. And though they are sort of promising green technology and green energy, they're not. They're being just hooked onto the electricity system and thrown into gas turbines. And then it's business as usual, because it's all about business as usual. And we're not really adapting. And though we're doing huge things in this country with wind, these data centers, and like I say, I've been through the paperwork, are just nothing different. They're nothing special. And we just don't seem to have the ability to be able to say, stop, you can't build that here unless you do this, unless you do that. So it's not that I'm against the AI systems and the data centers. It's just stop building this stuff. It's like the argument about, stop building new homes without solar panels. It's just 70s thinking.
So is it maybe the case that we need stronger regulation or stronger national entities or supranational entities that can say you can only build this data center if you are able to provide 50% of its energy yourself, if you're able to pay for clean energy sources that will drive it? Is that right?
Yeah, I think we ought to just look at it and say, no, you're not doing that. I mean, the argument then is they'll go somewhere else in the world,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean that we should just roll over straight away. You have to sort of lead by example in certain respects. And even if they build them here damaging, they will still go and build them elsewhere where the energy is much, much cheaper. We have one of the most expensive forms of energy in the world, so that's not putting them off, frankly. So why are they building them here with energy prices what they are? And that's possibly not something we get to on air.
I was going to say, I mean, yes, why are they? But if that's a can of worms or a rabbit hole or some mixed metaphor, then fair enough.
Well, I think it comes down to what Michael Deere just said on Discord, where he said he gave up flying for 20 years, but he stopped. He's flying again because why should disadvantage his family when nobody else is stopping? And I suspect a lot of what we're seeing now is because the US is throwing these up, China's throwing these data centers up, we're trying to compete. And so hang the environmental goals for the time being. The government's so hooked on short-term thinking and getting growth that it will take any kind of economic incentive it possibly can to get jobs and growth going. So, yeah, I agree. It's hugely worrying in terms of the long-term impact. But whether or not we blocked these data centers, it would make almost little difference on the global scale.
The reality.
Yeah, part of me wants to say it's better to have the.
No, please go on.
Yeah, part of me wants to say, I mean, it's better to have the data centers in a country which is nominally at least, paying some sort of more than lip service towards net zero, rather than, I won't slander any particular countries, but I'm sure there's plenty of other nations out there would be delighted to have the money pouring in that would, happily burn all the coal or whatever, burn old tires to fuel them. This might be a case of, a lesser of many possible evils.
The trouble is that there are so many fighting factors here. So Barry talked about the short-term focus on growth. If the government doesn't focus on short-term growth, then it's out of power within 4 years, and someone else will come in, and probably maybe with a less net zero friendly, aim of mind. So everything has its consequence, and everyone has their pressures. So I just don't. This is beyond the possibility for four middle-aged white men in various studios to figure out an answer to. But I think it's very cogently put, Lee, how well you framed that. But I think at the same time we do need some sort of resource within the UK to do this. But maybe we need to challenge that thinking. Maybe we don't, because if we can get the infrastructure links working so well to a country that can handle the environmental factor better. For example, if you go into the proper, into the Arctic, where you've got the natural aid of cooling from water and from the colder conditions, then presumably that can actually lower your energy costs overall. So maybe we don't need to have this AI infrastructure, but unfortunately, I'm not qualified to say whether or not we do. In your research, Lee, did you see anything?
It does sound like you are proposing like directly heating up the Arctic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I going to get that blame in 100 years' time? It's all that blame going to fall on my shoulders.
There's Attenborough currently crawling up your driveway.
And part of the problem is the countries that do have both the space and the climate to make a big change, and that's America being prime amongst them, are turning their backs on green energy. I saw Jeff posting about how China is leading in solar, for example. Yes, it absolutely is, and wind. But compared to the demand on its system, it's a tiny percent still of China's total output. But so you've got both companies vastly exceeding their renewable generation, and in countries like the States who are turning their back on renewable generation, even though they're in prime position to do it and the economics set up. Over here, the problem is that, as someone else again mentioned on Discord a few moments ago, that a lot of the renewable energy we're generating over here, and we're miles ahead of most countries in terms of the proportion of renewable energy, but a lot of that gets wasted. And in fact, in an hour's time, my energy provider Octopus is giving me free electricity for an hour just to try and encourage you to burn it off the grid, because the way the economic incentives for renewable energy are done in this country means that they get paid to dump it, which is crazy. We've got to get, and Ed Miliband was saying this was crazy in opposition, and yet has done nothing about it in government. So you're right, Tim, there's no simple answer and there's no one answer, but there's so many factors going wrong at the moment that it's just depressing.
We roll back even further to even more nonsensical thinking that will never happen in a million years. You look at the planet as a whole and look at basically what we do as consumers, and you look at waste, and the simple answer is we consume too much, certainly in the global north. And for any of this to work, we need to consume less, and that means less clothes, less devices, and it's all the stuff that human beings don't like because we get attached to shiny stuff, and that means overcoming centuries and centuries of that sort of growth thinking. And I don't know if human beings are capable of that, but as I say, you have this ticking clock behind you. And, as we saw with COVID, lots of people didn't take it very seriously till it pulled up on their doorstep. And climate change is on people's doorsteps now. It's not in the global north, and mainly people flick an air conditioning switch and the problem goes away. But that is going to, our generation will probably outlive that. My grandkids, if they ever arrive, life is going to be very, very different for them. So, but I've no idea how we as humans do something on that scale, because it's so ingrained into us. So I apologise for depressing everyone with this, but that's real.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Lee. Let's draw it to a close there for now, and move on to something slightly less contentious. Well, I'm sure if John was here, it'd be very contentious, which is the new Apple interface.
Yeah, so Apple has rolled out its new 26 versions of its operating systems this Monday, I think it was. So we've got macOS 26 Tahoe, and new versions for the iPad and the iPhone. And these all introduce, to some extent or another, what Apple is calling liquid glass, which is their new interface for all of these different operating systems. And the idea, I think, is to tie the look of Apple operating systems together more cohesively. And what they're really doing is borrowing the interface that was used for the Apple Vision. So if anyone's had a play with an Apple Vision, the windows that you see in front of you when the device is on your head are all transparent. And that makes perfect sense on a device where you want to be able to see past the windows. If I can see something in the background whilst I'm working on a document on my Mac or watching a video, whatever, fantastic, because you probably want that peripheral vision on a device like the Vision Pro. Where it makes less sense, as Microsoft discovered about 20 years ago, is on the desktop, because there is nothing to see beyond your desktop by and large. And if you are layering window over window, then all you get is sort of a murky background of the window beneath on the window on top. So this is rolled out, and to me, it's an absolute retrograde step. It's the first time I've gone through an Apple refresh and thought this looks a lot worse than the last version. There have been, iffy ones in the past, but none where you've visually gone, oof, what's that? And it's not just the look of it; it's fundamental problems with the way the operating system works. I'm going to start with the iPad, because I think the iPad is the worst so far. I don't have an iPhone, so I can't tell you how bad it is on the iPhone. But just to give you some examples of what's gone wrong on the iPad, if you got a phone app on the iPad, so you can download certain apps like Blue Sky, only have a phone version, but you can use it on the iPad. We have this new windowing system where you can have iPad apps windowed at half size or whatever, or full screen for the first time. The first time on an iPad, you've really been able to do that. If you have a phone app on the iPad, you can't close it anymore. You can't swipe up to close it. You have to use the three little buttons at the top to close it. Why? I have no idea. Windows that you maximize in portrait mode can stay minimized in landscape mode. So if you switch the orientation of your iPad around, it remembers the orientation for it remembers the size it was for that orientation, which is really weird. So you just switch something around and you've got two different sizes. Everything's juggling around on your screen. There's horrible little frames. The liquid glass puts horrible little frames around the folders on your desktop, so it just makes them they look awful. There's no window snapping, so every operating system in the world does this now, where you can drag to the left, to the right to snap windows. Apple introduces real multitasking for the first time on the iPad, but you can't snap the windows. You've got to physically open a thing, say, I want it in that configuration, put it across there. It takes about 4 clicks to do what a mouse drag does on every other operating system in the world. There's a new games app that's absolutely pointless. It serves no purpose. There's a phone app on the iPad. Why? I've not got a phone. It's not connected to the iPad.
Sorry, but why does the games app serve no purpose?
It's basically a way to see you Apple's arcade and tell you what your friends are playing. You could have done this in the App Store, like they have been doing for the last 20 years. There's a preview app that I really cannot understand, that's similar to the Mac one, that again serves absolutely no purpose on the iPad that I can see. There's still no decent file system. Trying to navigate the Apple file system on an iPad is like trying to wade through treacle in your underwear. It's absolutely awful. And it's the first, like I say, it's the first time in an Apple refresh that I can remember that I've gone, what are you doing? You've absolutely lost the plot.
So for balance, I should say immediately that John Honeyball entirely disagrees with you. He absolutely loves it. And so by the looks of things, does Nick L. Let me quote directly from Discord. pcpro.link/discord if you want to join in the conversation. Live between 1 to 2 p.m. every Thursday, UK time. Nickel, I really like all the 26th gen Apple OS look and feel. It's really cohesive, works really well, and the transparency isn't massively distracting, even on the desktop in iPad OS or Mac OS. So he's pretty vehemently against you. But we'll go to Darian, who's got the counter view.
I was just going to say, isn't massively distracting is hardly an endorsement of a major kind of visual revamp. I'm actually, I was impressed that Barry's kind of gone into so much depth, because I installed this thing. Only came out a couple of days ago. He's really been putting it through its paces. I installed it. No. I installed it on my Macs, and it's just, it really is the dictionary definition of change for change's sake. I cannot see a single functional, practical advantage whatsoever of the new design. It doesn't expose anything that wasn't exposed before. It doesn't put anything at your fingertips. And in fact, you could have built in new features without adding this kind of pervasive transparency. All it does is it makes the interface less clear, because now there are several places, like I just shared in Discord a screenshot where text is on a semi-translucent background, sorry, is on a semi-transparent background, and other things slide underneath it, which makes it much less readable. It's a huge step backwards, and I'm baffled as to how it got past any kind of quality control. And the other thing I really need to say is that they've updated some of the system icons, including the Finder icon, and it just looks horrible. It looks like a first attempt at that someone's. It looks like, and I say this in full knowledge of what people might say, it looks like Linux.
Wow,
Lee?
that's fighting talk.
Lee, you seem to have a point of view. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is genuinely, and not because I'm in here with you guys, I think this is one of the beauties of PC Pro, is that you get to hear about all these things, and you can make up, you can listen to learned people like Darian and Barry and Tim, and find out what they think before you jump in. And I'm normally all in with these sorts of things, but I've not been on the ball with it. And then I saw Barry blue skying about it, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to give this one a miss. And then I realised I was here today and I was going to have to talk about it. So I upgraded my phone last night, my iPhone 12, and visually it absolutely didn't float my boat. And then I gave my kids my phone, and they said, "Oh, is this one of your old ones?" And I looked at it again and I thought, yeah, this looks like iOS 4. Because it's like the camera icon just looks like the one I had on my iPod Touch. It's really bizarre what they've done. Just as a note, anyone that does hate the transparent effect, if you're looking at YouTube, you can see on my phone, in the accessibility features, there's an option to turn off transparency, and now I've got solid backgrounds on the back of all my stuff now, and I have to say that's made it much better. But I haven't upgraded my iPad or my Mac at the moment, so I can't try out things like continuity, which was the thing I was sort of looking for. But then I looked down the list of things that continuity is bringing out, and Apple have very nicely sort of displayed what the different features are and what level of iOS you need to run it. And there doesn't seem to be anything that seems to be new with this version. All the features in it seem to be present already there, so I don't think there was I'm not going to be missing out. So really this is just going to sit on my iPhone. I've no hurry to upgrade this until Barry says it's safe to do so.
Okay, that could be a while.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we haven't got too many people in favour of the new look. And sometimes it can just take a while, because this is the release candidate. Is that right, Barry? We're not talking about a final OS update here, are we?
No, these are available for public download.
Are they? Okay. All right. So everything is final, but sometimes things are sorted out on a point release.
Yeah,
so...
they will. But the example that Darren just posted with the text, you see that all over the place in macOS. It's in the settings menu. It's in Mail. It's in different applications, mainly Apple's own applications. How they got through any kind of testing, and they go through public betas as well as closed betas as well. It's baffling for someone like Apple with its reputation. I'm astonished it's this bad. I'm astonished John thinks it's good, but maybe he's got a different experience to the rest of us.
If I can guess, I know John is very into sort of fabrics and cross-device experiences, so it might be that he's very taken by the increasing consistency. Personally, I think I'm a little bit unusual because I use a Mac on the desktop, as I've said, and I use Android for mobile. So this is throwing away.
Has he gone wrong for everybody else?
It's throwing away devices I don't have and never use. So it's all.
Unfortunately, Darian, you're breaking
Sorry,
up
am I back?
for most of us. You're back. You just broke up for that little sentence. I'm sure it'll be fine on the final recording.
Oh,
but you were
I
just
see
saying
why.
that,
I'm on the wrong network. We got. Right. Yes. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, brother.
Great. Yeah, so I think I'll just go back to the start of what I said. I can totally see why John, who is very interested in sort of fabrics and cross-platform devices, cross-platform experiences, likes the increase in consistency and coherence that this brings. But I know I'm slightly unusual in this. I use a Mac on the desktop, and as I've said many times, I use Android for mobile. And so for me, I am basically losing clarity and accessibility, so that my desktop can be more consistent with some devices that I don't own and never use. It's all downside for me.
Consistency with devices that nobody owns. I mean, the Apple Vision is statistically relevant at this point. It's, nobody owns one. So why they're putting the entire design of all four operating systems to copy Vision OS is absolutely baffling for my mind.
And do you want to just briefly cover the AI live translation use as well, Barry?
Oh, you know what? Oh, this is the. Sorry, I didn't see this on the sheet, but I know what it is. So this is a new feature or newish feature of the AirPods that have just come out, AirPods Pro, I think, where you can have a live language translation. So if someone's speaking to you in French in front of you, the AirPods will translate it into English, at least in theory, because in the EU it's not been released yet. Apple's not really said why, but it looks like it's hit some regulatory hurdles where the EU has some rather more stringent demands in terms of privacy, especially, and maybe Apple needs to release a bit more detail about how this information is stored and where the information from these conversations goes before it gets approval in the EU. That obviously we're outside of the EU now, so I'm not sure if it will work in the UK or not, but that'd be one to check.
It will, and as most of us, the major place that we all visit as Brits is mainland Europe. That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But I have no stats to back that up, by the way. It's just a sneaky suspicion. Darian?
It's worth mentioning that the same thing applies to the
That new network's working a treat, isn't it?
10 Pro, which is was it now 2 weeks ago? That was it, I think, Jim.
Yeah, Darian, we've really struggling to hear you. I'm sorry. I know it's not your fault.
It is his fault. He needs to sharpen
You're
up
going
his
to blame
game.
Darian?
Yeah, especially when he's off camera.
I can't do that because then I have to take the blame for all my network errors.
Who's editing this week?
Him, thankfully.
Oh, damn it. And that's never going to make the cut then, is it? He'll cut all this out.
Yeah, he's going to have to come back in. Okay, I'll tell you what. Whilst we await Darian returning, I think there was a natural end there, wasn't there? So I think we can move on to the next story, which is by Darian. Oh, God. Oh, damn it. Anyway, how is everyone? You well, Lee?
Actually, I've got some quiz questions here. If you,
Yeah. I saw Duolingo's brought. So actually, Duolingo's brought chess to its platform, which is quite good.
it needs to do
Bit
something.
of fun.
Duolingo's brought chess to its platform.
You can now learn chess in Duolingo.
In French.
No, in very much.
I know en
English.
passant. So I'm already ahead
that
of
is
most
true,
of the
yeah.
population.
You look
I
quite
know it
bewildered,
counts.
Lee.
I did. I didn't understand any of that.
You don't know the en passant role in chess? Come on, Lee, that was top level comedy, that was.
It's above my head, Barry. You'll have to explain to me one day. Draw me a diagram.
Bloody
Hello,
nerds.
Darian.
Hello. I'm going to say I don't think that was my fault because my Discord kept working. I think that's Riverside prejudice against me.
It hates you, clearly.
Yes, sorry about
I
that.
think it does have a bit of a last one in, first one out kind of policy.
So I don't know what you heard, but I know I'm supposed to introduce the
nothing.
next story. So okay. What
Well,
I was going to say was, sorry, yeah. All I was going to say was that the Pixel 10 Pro came out about 2 weeks ago, and they made a big deal of the live translation feature in that at the presentation, and that's not available here. So I think it's this is not just Apple being weird. I think this is clearly some international regulation thing.
Probably the French. They just don't want us to. They want everyone to learn French, basically. Is what this all boils down to.
That may be not a million miles from the truth.
We. All right, Darian, you have the next story.
Yes. So for the first time, OpenAI, the publishers and developers of ChatGPT, have released a paper published in the National Bureau of Economic Research which apparently is a journal and not a bureau, entitled "How People Use ChatGPT." This is an interesting analysis because it's the first one we've had that's actually based on internal data from OpenAI, so it should be fairly reliable. Tells us some interesting facts and figures. For example, OpenAI says they currently have over 700 million users, which is, as they point out, nearly 10% of the entire world population. Although they haven't broken this down into who's paying and who's a free user, so we don't really know how that translates to cha-ching. Another very surprising thing, I think, is 46% of users who revealed their age were between 18 and 25. That's a hell of a skew towards a particular demographic. More surprising to me, though, I think, was the fact that the ratio is slightly more female than male based on statistical analysis of what people revealed their names to be. When ChatGPT first launched, it was 80% male, but now gradually the ladies have been have pushed ahead. Some other stuff.
Just to say,
yeah.
I'd always just be a tiny bit wary. So if 18 to 25 is the first first push button option, then you will see a bias towards that.
That's a very good point, but I believe in this case, this is all based on data which has been inferred by the engine about its users. So it hasn't brought up a survey saying, just click through. I think this is actually the engine itself sharing, and it gets permission, I believe. I think there were some people were asked their permission to share anonymous data to feed into this survey. Didn't ask me, but anyway, yeah, I think this is perhaps one notch above junk data. I'm not going to say it's not going to say it's academic standard, but it could be worse. Anyway, I was going to say that non-work tasks have grown. Again, that's identified by the AI itself, but it thinks that last year about half of all work was done. Sorry, half of all sessions were for work purposes, but now non-work makes up 72% of interactions. People are using AI more for their daily, just find out facts they're interested in, or ask it questions, or set it personal tasks, such as, where's a good example? Translating things, personal writing, communication, writing fiction, 1.4%, which is, it's a low number, but then if you think that, who would actually use AI to write fiction? I'm not criticizing it as I'm not saying, you're automatically a bad person if you use AI. I do think there is an artistry to kind of guiding and curating what an AI can generate. Nevertheless, I'm actually surprised it's that high for for this particular service. It seems like the intersection of people who would be excited about an LLM and the people who want to write. Well, I don't know what the fiction is about. Maybe it's dystopian science fiction, but anyway, that's happening. A couple of other things to mention. In work, the most common use for ChatGPT is documenting and recording information, which makes sense because that's kind of what it's best at. But 15% of interactions that were classified as business interactions deal with making decisions and solving problems, which indicates that, I'm not going to say we're outsourcing our brains to ChatGPT, but we're certainly, asking it for an opinion.
Interesting. Just out of interest, Lee, do you use ChatGPT or anything like it?
I tell you where I do use it, honestly, cards on the table. When I write for a certain organisation, which is a web publication, it ranks your articles by certain facets, and one of them is it doesn't like passive sentences, and it would seem that I have a habit for writing in passive sentences, and sometimes, try as I might, I cannot make my passive sentence active. So I often say to Perplexity, here, make this sentence active. So I've written the sentence and it just rearranges 4 words, and I go, yeah, I'm sure I could have thought of that, and somehow that just allows me to pass the test, and that is really all I use it for. With the exception of, I think in Next PC Pro or PC Pro after, I used AI to fix a computer. So you'll have to see how I did that. But I generally don't use it and I try and avoid it because I went to London a couple of weeks ago, which is a huge thing for me, and I wanted to print out an itinerary, and I asked it for the address of the Travel Lodge, the Blue Palace in Hackney, and it gave me completely the wrong address. That was the little AI bit at the top of Google, which you would think, given what that thing was and the information available for it, it would get that right. But it didn't.
Google has its own maps system, which is extremely mature. It's baffling and frustrating to me how poor that thing is. I was going to say about 25% of people go to ChatGPT seeking information. You guys laughed at me a couple of weeks ago when I said ChatGPT is not a search engine, but I think, it's...
I didn't laugh at you. I said it blatantly was. I think it was you who said it wasn't.
That's what I say. I say it's. I maintained that it's not a search engine, and you guys were telling me it. Believe me, it is.
It is absolutely a search engine.
The funny thing is, I remember someone at the advent of all this saying it would never be replace the search engine. Who was that, Barry? Who was that?
Did I?
Yeah,
It seems unlikely. Someone asked ChatGPT if I said that, because that seems unlikely. I mean, you talk about using it to make decisions. I don't think I've ever used it to make an outright decision, but definitely to help guide decision making. I think that's really useful. And in fact, what I think one of the things it's very good at is taking out your own bias. So you say, this is a decision, I'm leaning this way, make the argument for not doing this. And it's really good at that sometimes, for making you consider the alternatives to what you're doing.
Yeah, my favorite prompt is upload anything and just say, what have I missed? And it will, it will often come up with angles or just other aspects that you can then use to inform your human created final product.
So I attended a briefing by Workplace last week. So Workplace is a ERP. It's a kind of everything solution to help you work better, your whole company. This is not an advert. But what was most interesting about the things that they announced was an AI agent to actually get rid of that bias. I thought it was one of the more compelling things that they said, where if you're a manager, then often your bias is based upon whatever you feel about people, and it's often very much biased towards recency. And what AI can do far better is it can actually look for data that stretches back for the whole year period you're meant to be looking at, as opposed to just being, the argument I had with Barry last week about his T-shirt being too orange. So that's the sort of way it can certainly help. One thing I just think, just going back a bit to what you were saying right at the start, Lee, I think we do possibly all have to, as a personal choice, consider, just because we can use AI to create a 10-second video based on a picture, should we do that? Because that's an incredibly intensive use of AI resources, as opposed to, let's say, rephrase the sentence from passive to active. So I think that's just... I guess that's something that we just all have to learn and maybe just carry with us, in the same way that we can throw litter out of our window as we drive along, but we don't generally, because we know it has an impact.
Yeah, it's true. It's with great power comes great responsibility and all that sort of junk. And there's a wonderful entity out there called Prompt Zero. If you Google Prompt Zero, you'll find that they are very straightforward. It's a prompt that you shove into your AI system that basically tells it to cut the junk and get on with it, and just give me bullet points of the information. And it's just a way of getting the same information, but not getting all the verbosity that AI is sort of giving you now, as it shows you all its thought process and it's rolling up and it's burning through carbon, on each cycle. Just alluding to what Darian said there, there is a skill in generating a good prompt. Prompt engineering is a thing, and I think there are ways we can certainly do that much more efficiently for the climate.
Jeff makes a good point on Discord about having a proper analysis of the power usage of AI training via AI usage, and that is a good point, that usage is far less intensive in most cases. Obviously, usage scales a lot heavier than training. But I was reading a really interesting piece this morning. I wish I could remember. I was just trying to search for it, but it was a really interesting piece about how the evolution of AI and how we're moving now from LLMs to small language models designed specifically for very specific tasks. So there might be a language model exactly for Lee turning sentences into active rather than passive, and that the ability for those to run locally on MPUs is much greater than it is for the likes of ChatGPT or whatever. And this piece was saying that, you know, often with technology you start with almost the worst case scenario, the bad example of it, and it filters down, it gradually gets better over time. And this could be the case for AI, in that we end up with lots of much smaller models that are practically invisible to us as users. It's just your language checker or your photo generator or whatever, and they run much more locally on much more limited models that consume less power. We just haven't got there yet, but we're on the path.
I've spent the last sort of month, we are really busy in the shop at the moment with people moving off Windows 10 onto Windows 11. And so I spent a great deal of time talking with people with very, very old machines. I mean, I've seen some Windows 7s and a lot of Windows 8s coming out the woodwork. And Windows Copilot has come up a lot, or Microsoft Copilot, whatever it's called today. And just what you were saying there, Tim, about the usage of it, I think there's a big difference between using AI in a business environment or a professional using AI to do medical scans on, you know, cancer research and screening and stuff like that. And then you look at the other side of what Microsoft is doing, which is trying to foie gras it into everyone, whether they want it or not. And just on the very small sample of one tiny repair shop in Yorkshire, you know, Copilot is about as popular as syphilis and seemingly quite as hard to get rid of. And the last time I saw customers get this riled up about their PCs was the Windows 8 start menu issue, and people are really annoyed by it. And so I think what Barry was saying about sort of the smaller models on local machines and stuff like that, I think absolutely, I think there's so much potential in that. I just worry that Microsoft, for a lot of their consumer base, has just really annoyed people and have really just tainted the Copilot brand beyond belief. Because some of the venom that I've listened to in the past sort of few weeks has really been quite astounding. I really should write some of it down for you and anonymize it, let you have a listen, because people are furious.
Okay. But even though it's fundamentally it's a button, you have to call up Copilot.
No, it's not that. It's that every time you open Edge, there's an update.
Or
you
Word.
know, you open Notepad. What the hell is Copilot doing in Notepad?
Yeah.
You know, you just want a text editor. It's all that. It's just no matter what app you open, it's there, except Outlook Classic, which is the one you all want it to do to sort out your damn email icon. It's not there.
Yep. Well, Outlook is probably whirring away in the background right now for me, because it's got this really, sorry, this is very irrelevant to almost everyone, but I have to reinstall Outlook quite a lot. And if I forget to tell it just to look at the last 2 years, it will just pull in everything. But it doesn't pull from recency. It pulls from the start.
Yeah.
And so it goes all the way back to 2016 and starts filling up from there. What the hell's going on? That's so stupid. Why just not start from the most recent ones? It's just, so I've got this Outlook and it just, I can see emails from 2016. Can't see emails from last month. Anyway. Let's move on, shall we? Thank you very much, gentlemen. That was well put. So here's a little bit of hope for the future, which is that scientists, I love that word, scientists,
Boffins.
men in white,
And the men in white coats.
Anyway, one particular man in a white coat, and his name is Xing Yuzhong. He is Chinese, and he's a student or professor or something, I didn't check that, at the Southern University of Science and Technology.
He's a scientist of some standing.
Well, you know, I checked the pronunciation. I think that's the most important thing. And that's in Shenzhen, in the Shenzhen region. It's not a big university, actually. It's only got about 10,000 people, apparently. But anyway, the point is that they have they've worked out, or he and his team have worked out a way to encode data effectively into DNA. And I am really talking properly DNA, the molecules that make up DNA. And then encode them, pop out little bits of the tape and of old style kind of tape style medium, so that you can loop it basically in the same way you might loop a cassette tape of old, and then you have access to that data at incredible densities, just due to the way that DNA manages to pack in the information so well. And so they are saying a single cassette, if this got translated out, a single cassette's worth could hold every single piece of music recorded ever in the world. And in fact, you could have a shoebox full of these tapes, and you'd have every single bit of information in the world could be encoded within them, if this technology can get translated out. What I also found interesting about this is that this idea dates back to a certain Richard Feynman, a very famous physics professor. I'm sure you've all heard of him. In 1959, I think it's called Race to the Bottom. Anyway, he did a lecture where he proposed this idea of actually encoding data in molecules at the atomic level. And now we have, to a certain extent anyway, reached the point of reality thanks to these boffins in white coats. I don't expect it to come anytime soon, by the way. If you actually follow the scientific journals, and occasionally I dip in and out of them, it's amazing what people do get up to, and the crazy stuff that comes out. And it's fascinating. But in terms of the number of times that these amazing ideas turn into reality, so let's take the transistor in Bell Labs in 1948, eventually turning into something that completely changed the universe. It's just actually so rare. But anyway, so I'm not saying this is going to be hitting. We're all going to be playing tapes that hold the whole world's wisdom on our Walkmans in the future. But I am saying what a fascinating use of technology and a very interesting breakthrough. And I seem to have shut up my fellow panelists.
There's not a lot to say to that.
Jeff Campbell asks, what is the accuracy? DNA doesn't have a great reputation for fidelity, hence evolution. Well, doesn't that open up intriguing possibilities? So in terms of the proof of concept that they've done, we can't go into it too. I don't know exactly how many times they had to try the experiment, but you remember I said how they sliced and diced the information on different areas of the tape, and so they encoded one piece of four quarters of a picture, and they put them into different areas, and then they re-encoded them and mashed them back up together. And apparently that did work with 100% of 100%. So yes, I can't guarantee that this is going to work, but there we go. Let's hope. All right, let's move on to an expanded, exciting version of Nibs, because we have 4 stories.
Whoa.
Yes, I know. They said that this format has got tired, but they did not know about the 4 Nibs stories that we're going to do this week. All right, Darian, let's start off with you, please.
Yes, well, you all know, of course, that Windows 10 support officially ends next month, in just under a month, in fact, on the 14th. A global coalition of repair advocates, consumer rights activists, and so forth are calling on Microsoft to extend it unilaterally for everyone. These groups include the European Rights Repair Coalition, Consumer Reports in the US, iFixit, Alt à Obsolescence Programmée, whom I guess they're Dutch or something. They're all pointing out that, when Windows 8.1 was discontinued, finally, just under 3% of PCs in the world were running it. At the moment, it's estimated that more than 40% of desktops are still using Windows 10. Those all becoming unsupported, unprotected, ineligible for security patches, promises to be an absolute fantasy for ransomware and hackers. And if everybody were in fact to go out in the next couple of weeks and buy a new Windows 11 PC and ditch their old one, we'd be looking at £1.6 billion, according to this report. I should have done the conversion, but I'm sure that's a lot of kilograms of e-waste generated from computers, which will, what one may assume, just be put in a skip, or even if they are responsibly disposed of, that's still a big burden on the environment. So yes, this global coalition has launched a petition, which you can find if you Google it. It doesn't have a short name that I can find, but you can, if you search for Microsoft Don't Leave Millions of Computers Behind, you can say, let us continue using Windows 10 for a bit longer. I don't think there's actually a concrete proposal to say, if you just let it run for another 18 months, we promise that we'll gradually segue onto Windows 11. It's a bit open-ended. It's a little bit of an ask, but as I say, the sheer number of people using Windows 10 does make this an issue that Microsoft should not be ignoring.
Number 2, please, Barry.
This is Slack, who have suddenly started hitting non-profits and charities with extraordinary demands for payments. This comes via a blog post for something called Hack Club, which is a sort of non-profit that provides education to teenagers worldwide. And like a lot of organizations and loose groupings around the place. It uses Slack for their communication, storing all their files and sharing code. Until recently, they were paying the £5,000 a year fee that Slack charged for non-profits. But a few days ago, they got hit with a demand for £50,000 this week to keep their Slack server going, and $200,000 for it to run for the entire year. Obviously, a non-profit can't pay that kind of money for its software infrastructure, and so they're having to move to some open source alternative. But of course, because Slack being Slack, it doesn't allow you to export your data. So a little warning there for anybody who's getting all their data, whether they're your business or a non-profit. Your data's captive in systems like Slack, and they can decide to charge what they like. Whilst we're talking about these kind of collaboration apps, Microsoft has avoided the sharpest rap on the knuckles from the EU by deciding to decouple Teams from the rest of Office. So they've agreed to sell Office 365 or Microsoft 365, whatever it's called this week, on a reduced price basis if it doesn't include Teams, or there's another price if you do want Teams. So Microsoft has avoided any kinds of fines or other sanctions.
Yep. Microsoft Office 365 NT perhaps could be the version. All right, let us. Oh yeah, sorry, it's me. Third nib, which is that there has been an extension, yet another extension to the TikTok ban or unban, which, as we know by now, TikTok should have been banned in the US. But it's been extended to the 16th of December, with the idea being that they have finally struck a deal, or they will about to finally strike a deal, where the US-based entity that will be running TikTok in America will be owned by a coalition of companies, including Oracle and an investment company. But yeah, that will be happening. And it's not going to be 100% owned as previously, but 80% owned, which appears to be the crucial breakthrough. There we go. One to keep on watching. Yes, and deliberately, by the way, Lee, I put you last because I came after your nib last week, and your legendary nib, and I thought I just can't go after Lee again. It is too hard. So I'm going to set you up and say, yeah, everyone, sit back, relax, and listen to Lee's nib.
Can I also say that after writing the first story in this podcast, I won't smile again till Tuesday. So this is not the hemorrhoid one from last week. So I'm sorry, this isn't going to be as popular as last week. But anyway, this is not to take away from the Scunthorpe's Hardang, who last week claimed the British Microsoft Excel World Championship title in a hotly contested competition in London, winning with the data project on English monarchs. Now, Dang will go on to represent the country at the World Spreadsheet Championships in Las Vegas in December. Now, Dang is an accountant and learned Excel from watching YouTube videos, and he'll go up against 64 other participants, presumably also accountants, in timed rounds building spreadsheets to answer questions about themed data, competing for a $5,000 cash prize or compensation depending on how you look at it. And so our best wishes to Hardang, and we'll check in with him later in the year.
All right, thank you very much. Right, Barry, due to a certain delay earlier, we haven't got too long for your monitor, but please try and sell it as the hot hardware of the week.
Spoiler. Yes, so this is...
Were you going to keep it back at the fact it's a monitor until the end? You're going to dance around what this product is. I apologise.
My script. So Tim asked a question in the little panel we have at the start of the magazine a few months ago, saying, what would be your ideal monitor? And I said, I don't want to do monitor. I just want windowing to work better and properly. And I'm a complete liar, because about a month after that, I went out and bought a new monitor, largely because Tim put a group test of 22 monitors in the magazine, and I started reading it and thought, oh yeah, I could quite fancy one of those. And I came dangerously close to buying an Iyama, and then I looked through a bit further, and there was a 34-inch widescreen that I quite like the look of, but it was a little bit more than I wanted to spend. And I looked at it on Amazon, and suddenly it dropped to a fine £188, and I snapped it up in an instant. And this is the MSI Modern MD342CQPW, the snappily titled, lovely monitor from MSI. So as it suggests, this is a 34-inch widescreen. Its resolution is 3440 by 1440. So that aspect ratio is 2.39 to 1. So it's a really widespread monitor. It's a curved monitor, a little bit more curved than I anticipated, if I'm being honest, and it takes a bit of getting used to. Especially when you've come from a much smaller flat screen, it took me a good 2 or 3 days to think this is weird. I might have to send it back. But having used it for a couple of weeks now, I'm more than happy with it. Obviously, the big advantage, and I don't know why I've not done this years ago as a journalist, for having a big widescreen, is that you can put documents side by side much more easily than you can on your standard widescreen monitor. In fact, you can comfortably get 3 different documents or web browsers or whatever side by side across that 34-inch screen without having to use awful vertical scroll bars or zoom text right out. So it's much better for that. It's got but it's not too bad for gaming either. So it's got maximum refresh rate of 120 hertz, although you only get that, I found out subsequently, on the USB-C connection. If you're using HDMI, you can only get up to 100 hertz, but the difference is fairly minimal there. But for games, sado moment time. I've over the last few months, I've got horribly addicted by Euro Truck Simulator, and I find it really calming to go for a little drive in my truck after a day at work, and that looks fantastic. Wow. On here. You can, because you've got your wing mirrors on the side, and oh man, me and the truckers are absolutely loving the monitor. But the games like Rocket League or anything, Football Manager on a wide screen like this is fantastic. And there's a new version of Football Manager coming out, coincidentally, fairly soon. Lots, it works for work, it works for games. The color accuracy is pretty good. I'm going to crib from Tim's review from the labs, but it has, I think it was a Delta E of 0.52, so not the most brilliantly color accurate, but pretty accurate. It's 87% of the DCI-P3 gamut, which is pretty good. My one criticism of the colours of it, the reds tend to be a little bit over-egged. They're a bit punchy, the reds, especially compared to the MacBook screen that sits underneath it. But actually, the MacBook screens are pretty much the standard bearer in the industry, and comparing the two side by side as they sit here on my desk all day, it's pretty difficult to see much difference between them, as I say, other than the sort of slightly jumpy reds on the MSI screen. It has a pair of speakers if you're really desperate. I think they're 2-3 watt. They sound pretty piddly and awful. You wouldn't want to listen to anything sensible on them, but if you've got another alternative, they're fine. It supplies up to 98 watts of power back to laptops, so if you can sort your cabling out, you might be able to not use so many plugs and stuff. But overall, for 188 notes, it's been very good value indeed, and it's still on sale. In fact, on Amazon, it's gone up to 189, so it's a quid more expensive, but it's still much cheaper than the 299 including VAT that it was reviewed at, and that got 5 stars, arguing that it was the good value screen, arguably the best value screen on test at 299. So for 189 InkVat, I think you should probably go and snap it up.
I do find it amazing that they've managed to produce it at that price, but there we go. Because that was 22 different monitors. I think from memory, there's about 8 of the around the 32 to 34 inches variety. And it still stood out for value. So the fact that it's on sale for that is just incredible. The only thing it doesn't have, which should probably be mentioned, is an RJ45 connection, but that is easily remedied via a via a USB-C port replicator that you can shove into one of the ports. So it's not really a big issue.
Why do you want to connect your monitor to the network?
Because you're connecting over USB-C, and so then you've got a one cable connection back to your laptop, and you've now got a wired connection to the internet.
Laptop, right?
And so you wouldn't be, I don't know, let's say for example you're doing a podcast and you keep on dropping out because of your poor wireless connection. Just as a random example.
Yep.
Meow.
All right. And any other questions from the panel, Lee?
I'm just looking at the Guff online, and sorry, I mean the detailed marketing promotional material. And there's a talk of KVM facility, Barry. Have you had any chance? There's a little box they keep flashing up on the. I'm guessing you don't get it with it.
I think it is built in, but to be honest, I've not tested it. But I think you can switch between two different machines. In fact, I'm testing this week with doing a feature for Pro using a Raspberry Pi plugged into it simultaneously. So I will get around to testing that, but I've not tested that yet, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I also have been looking at I've been trying to work out exactly what the dimensions are because it's a 21:9 aspect ratio and 34 inches across the hypotenuse. So basically, what I did was I cheated and I went to Gemini and asked it, and it says that it's about 13.5 inches tall. Because I'm kind of thinking, because at the moment I have a 4K 28-inch monitor, and it seems like this one has a lower vertical resolution. That's only 1440 compared to the 2160 that you get on a full 4K one. But I suppose what I really want to know is, can you tell? Obviously, you don't have a 4K. Actually, Tim might know this. You don't have a 4K screen next to it. But can you actually see that the resolution, although it's spread across an almost identical vertical height, does it look grainier or does it still have that perfect kind of clean, crisp text quality?
So it depends upon where you're sitting from. So if you're the sort of person who comes in really close to your monitor, you may be able to detect a certain amount of grain. But this is if you've ever used a 27-inch monitor with 1440p resolution, which is 2560 by 1440, then you will know actually that's sharp. It looks fine. And Barry is sitting in front of it now and will either disagree with me or otherwise, but I think it's perfectly sharp
Yeah.
on a typical viewing distances.
And plus, that cuts down on the number of pixels it's got to shove around, so less intensive for graphics and stuff. Plus, I've got a secondary, very high res monitor on the MacBook beneath it, and again with the M1, it doesn't even flicker on the GPU. Sorry.
Now, I'm a very interesting person, Darian, and I can
That
tell
wasn't.
you. Sorry. Are you in? No, you interrupting with that? Okay. But I can tell you that if you go above about 110 DPI or PPI, sorry, then actually it will appear typically pretty sharp to the naked eye. Between 100 and 110, it depends on the person. Below 100, I think most people would agree that it looks a bit fuzzy. Yep, often invited round to dinner parties, and look forward to an invitation to all yours soon. Okay, I think it might be time to vote. Is this hot or not? Darian, let's start with you.
Oh, it's
not.
gone again.
Stupefied. Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
No,
back.
am
He's
I back? I could still hear all of you perfectly, so it's nothing to do with me. It's definitely Riverside. Anyway, I think I am kind of in the market for a bigger monitor, although the one I have is is big. I do absolutely get what Barry says about what things side by side. I'm a little bit anxious about losing. It's insane. I mean, and that's pretty much buy it and give it a go. And if you don't like it, it's a kind of value. So I'm going to say yes, it's hot.
All right. Thank you. Lee, hot or not?
Well, was it 189? Did you say, Barry?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, at that price, you really can't go far wrong. It's curved, which I must admit I don't like. I'm not a curvy fan. But then again, if you saw the monitors in my shop, most of them have got the edges cut off. There's a cracked screen on one of them. You'd be absolutely horrified. So, the visual fidelity of it absolutely means nothing to me because I will work on any old junk that's put in front of me. So, at that price, though, it's fair enough. It's a good spec. Makes Barry happy. Tim gave it a good review. Yeah, hot.
I have to back my original verdict and give it a hot Barry. You are saying what, I wonder?
Yeah, I'm pleased. For once, Tim, your buying recommendations have been absolutely spot on. So I will go clean sweep and a hot as well.
And I can say that it's looking that way on Discord as well, with 86% of votes going hot. So a clean sweep there for MSI. Interesting company, by the way, because some of its products are very, very low rent, and other parts of its products are really good. The modern range is actually it's pretty decent, but then you can see some MSI products that I would not recommend anyone to buy. This one, on the other hand, yes. Okay, all right. Thank you very
PC
much.
Pro podcast sponsored by MSI.
Do you think they pay for that endorsement?
That's what I'm saying.
Products are really bad.
You're going to get a phone call after this, mate. That's what I'm saying.
I get a motherboard with a sticker on it next week saying Tim says it's mostly crap.
No, their motherboards are pretty good, pretty solid. Anyway, moving swiftly on before our podcast license gets withdrawn. Until next week. I'm not going to be around for a couple of weeks, so you'll have to put up with these grumpy fellows instead. So I will see you in probably 3 weeks. But for all the rest of us, goodbye, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, I've got some lovely glitches to edit out of that, so I better get on with it.
I've said that's the clearest you've looked all day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's me. I haven't changed anything, and I could still hear you and see you perfectly in real time all the time. You were saying, "Oh, where's Darian gone?" So I'm blaming.
Be interesting to hear what's on the audio feed.
Well, I think it will also have recorded me
locally.
while I was talking. Yeah, it records locally. So yeah, I just need to find the glitches and make them sparkle.
And by the way, I'm working, sadly, for people who Rich said have a great break. Sadly, I'm working all those 2 weeks, so
Just not for
there's
us.
no such thing as a break.
Tiny
I'm not
violin
Barry.
time.
Yeah, I know. All right. Let's say goodbye so Darian can edit this thing.
Yep.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.